a neighbor friend and I, we started a little car wash in the neighborhood, and we washed a few cars and then got really into it. So we decided to double down and started making these pamphlets and, how did we do cards? And it ended up tanking completely. We didn't find any new customers. I think the lesson that I learned there was to focus on the sales, focus on adding value to customers. And once you've got your plate full with that, then you can start working on getting the process in.
We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. B1 Bank knows that entrepreneurs like you are always thinking one step ahead. So you need banking solutions that can keep up. It begins with lending. Does your business need working capital or financing for new equipment? How about a real estate or a construction loan? Good news, the B1 lending team is ready to learn your goals and help you find the best lending option available. Now let's talk about uncomplicating your daily cash flow. B1 offers a full array of treasury management services that let you collect funds faster, pay funds more efficiently, and access your information with powerful online tools. Most importantly, B1 understands the value of working with local nonprofits to build a stronger community. They believe in giving back through hands-on involvement with their B1 Community Outreach Program because it's simply the right thing to do. B1 Bank. Be uncomplicated. To learn more, visit b1bank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the Next Entrepreneur Podcast. We're broadcasting today from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we're in the home of Alex Lobodiak. Alex, thank you for having us here.
Welcome to the 918.
Yeah,
good to have you.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful home. You told me it is what style?
English cottage.
English
That's
cottage.
what I'm going with.
Beautiful home. I love how quaint it feels. I love all the mature trees in the area and right across from a beautiful school. So it's a fantastic area. We have really enjoyed Tulsa. We came up here to deliver 7 adaptive bikes through our family foundation, the McClendon Family Foundation, which we did last night. It was a fantastic event. And we interviewed, we had another podcast that we did yesterday morning with Cindy McGee. She is just awesome. But moving around in between our hotel and restaurants and those events, we got a decent feel of Tulsa, and I really like it.
Where'd you guys go?
Well, we were kind of on 71st, kind of stationed out of 71st Street. I don't think we went 20 minutes in any direction to get to all the different places I mentioned. It's just, it feels good. It feels comfortable and relaxing, and everybody's friendly, and it's wonderful.
It's great to have that report. Yeah, I think you can get just about anywhere in Tulsa in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have to try to pull you all down here to the midtown and downtown area to get you out and around here.
Now, we definitely did not make it downtown, so we need to do that. I probably did some work here, one of my companies, maybe 20 years or so ago, but that was typically flying in, doing work, and flying out, and so I never really got a feel for the city. It's really a first time for us. So great city, and we're enjoying it. You are an interesting guest for us to have on the show, and that some of our guests are at the end of their career and exiting, through private equity, or they're serial entrepreneurs. They've done so many different things, or just so many different things that people can do. You're kind of interesting in that you have a job and you have a company. You have a job that you work for someone else, and you have a company. And I know those two are closely tied together, which we'll talk about. But you do so many things in the industry of the entrepreneurial world as a director, advisor, a mentor, and a board member. And there's so many things that you do, and I really want to get into all of it. But it's clear that is a real passion of yours, world of entrepreneurism. Why don't you tell us what you do now? What is it that you do now?
Yeah, so I direct the business development and sales operations for GeoSafe. We help first responders minimize their response times and improve their interoperability through a series of GPS technology and other types of database connections. So doing that, and then a little bit before that, I launched True North Ventures as my freelance consulting business to help early stage bootstrap ventures, pre-seed, pre-series A companies that don't really have a sales team that's been developed. I help them go to market and grow their business.
Okay, and we mentioned a lot of the other like nonprofit type things, but you're the director of Startup Grind.
Yeah,
Tulsa.
yeah, that's fun. That's where I get to basically switch seats with you and interview some incredible guests as well, like one that you mentioned, as well as some other Oklahoma, Tulsa, and Oklahoma City based guests.
I love talking to entrepreneurs. I love business. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I love everything about business. But talking to other entrepreneurs like yourself is very gratifying to me. And you can see, like, I've learned a lot. Some things that I've put into play into my own business after all these years. Just seeing how people took a different path, and grew their business and knew when to exit, knew when to start something new, knew when it was time to sell. If an offer came to the table, it was too good to pass up, so that's been fascinating. But I wanted to kind of dial it back a bit and start with like where you grew up.
Yeah, Tulsa native, born and raised here, grew up in a household of, I guess, I didn't know at the time, but entrepreneurial parents as well.
Yeah. What did they do?
My dad's a prosthodontist dentist here in Tulsa. He's, just sold his business and is now operating as an employee. And my mom, after they separated, she went back to school and got her interior design degree, worked for a firm for a little while, and then ended up opening up her own interior design shop. And so we have her to thank for the beautiful succulents here on this table.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so you're one of how many kids?
2. Well, so my brother and I are biological brothers, and I have a few stepbrothers after my dad remarried.
And were you entrepreneurial as a kid?
I probably didn't even know what that word was back then. I think the earliest memory that I have was going around the neighborhood in Christmas time with my mom, and we had these leaf cutters or branch cutters, and we would pull down some mistletoe from the trees, and then she would wrap it in a bow, and we put it in a little wagon. We would go around the neighborhood, and we started selling mistletoe to our neighbors, and that was probably just an excuse for her to get us outside the house. To be honest, that was probably the first thing that I remember doing, and then from there, got involved a little bit with the Scouts, and obviously we sold popcorn, but it's kind of hard to compete with Girl Scouts selling cookies.
Yeah, that's a tough gig there. When I was a kid, we used to collect aluminum cans. We would jump in the dumpsters, of the bowling alleys, and we would, and the cans were mixed up with cigarette butts and I mean, it was nasty. It was horrible.
I don't envy that.
But we would do it. And someone would take turns in the dumpster, and you'd just be chunking out hundreds and hundreds of beer cans, and we would collect them all, and then of course we were riding in our bikes. We'd load them up in saddlebags on our bikes and get them home. And I remember one time that we were ready to go tournament. We had filled up a refrigerator box of crushed cans, right?
Okay.
And more. So my brother took them in on the big day to get our money. And we got $88. And this was back in maybe 1974. There's a lot of money. Well, my brother took it upon himself to spend that money on buying at the recycling place where he just got the money. They sold these huge bags that you would use, and he spent all of our money on those. He bought 11 of these bags, so he came back with no money, but these 11 bags.
Was it a good investment? Did it pan out?
I don't think it did.
It's okay. I had a similar experience as a kid where a neighbor friend and we started a little car wash in the neighborhood, and we washed a few cars and then got really into it. So we decided to double down and started making these pamphlets and, how did we do cards, and it ended up tanking completely. We didn't find any new customers. I think the lesson that I learned there was to focus on the sales, focus on adding value to customers. And once you've got your plate full with that, then you can start working on getting the process ironed out.
We talked about that yesterday with one of our guests. So, but you went to school here locally, college?
Not locally here in Tulsa, but yes, in Oklahoma. Norman's just about 100 or so miles away here from Tulsa, about a couple hours.
And you got your bachelor degree in business?
Yeah, management information systems, so kind of like a hybrid of computer programming and business.
And so after that, you worked. You ended up with an MBA, but you worked for a number of years before going back.
Yeah. So keep in mind, I took the victory lap in school because I wanted to, one, travel abroad, and two, I believe I was pre-dent or pre-med for the first couple of years, thinking of following my father's footsteps, but just wasn't a fan. Switched to business. It just seemed to click a little bit more. But anyway, so I was a little bit behind on some of the classes, ended up getting caught up, could have graduated in 4.5 years, but took an extra lap just to go abroad and take some classes over there, travel the world. And so then that was about the time too, where I was initially enrolled to take the LSAT for law school, completely did a 180, just decided, hey, there was a financial downturn going on around 2010, decided to join a company as a quality assurance analyst. And
that's a rough time. The Great Recession was a brutal time to be trying to find a job.
Yeah, it was. I think, what I learned during that period was to kind of always have a little bit of a war chest ready just in case something like that happens. And I think it kind of forced me to be frugal and maybe a little bit more careful with our spending.
We had many years prior to that, we had a client that didn't pay us a large sum of money. As a contractor, of course, I still had to pay my subcontractors, and it was a brutal time. But it forced us to be ruthlessly efficient and frugal. And what I realized is in the years that followed that, we were so efficient and so frugal that when we got back to getting paid and making money, we were much more profitable.
That's what I love about bootstrap companies is they're forced to be scrappy with their funding, with their revenue and expenses. And so if you take the same type of mindset that a bootstrap company has and you apply that to a venture-backed company, it's amazing how much more you get out of the same amount of dollar for dollar.
Yeah, so you're talking about how efficient they are before they get investor dollars.
Yeah.
But you I was thinking about that when you think of some of the stories of companies that do get investment dollars, and I may be carrying this all the way back to the .com era, where they would just spend lavishly, and in some instances back then, not only did they not have any profit, they didn't have any revenue, right? These are companies that were getting wild valuations.
It's still happening today.
Huge investments, and then they're spending money lavishly to attract talent, and yet there was no revenue or income there. But if you can do what you were suggesting, start being frugal and efficient, and then carry that to the next phase when you do get money. Those are two opposite ends of the spectrum there, right?
Yeah. It feels good once the dollars start coming in, for sure. And there's some moments that you remember over the time where you went from sharing hotel rooms during conferences and driving instead of flying to try to preserve the bottom line of the company. And then once you guys start to hit a certain point, it's nice to take a little bit more of the creature comfort aspects of, well, if it's more than 5 hours, we're going to fly, or we're going to, maybe have our own separate room so we can get a good night's sleep.
Yeah. You did end up getting a job working in a mineral exchange. What was that?
Yeah, precious metals exchange. It's APMEX. If you think about how Amazon delivers, just about everything under the sun, what APMEX does is they deliver physical gold, silver, numismatic, collectible coins.
Like the physical delivery?
Yeah. So rather than buying, let's say, gold futures or investing in gold on paper or digitally, you're actually buying a gold bar or a gold coin.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, how did you get in that gig?
Well, I followed one of my friends that was at the company I was working with prior to, and I was really interested in getting out of being more on like the demolition side of of analytics and getting to be more of like the creative side of it. And they had an opening for an optimization analyst, which more or less performed as an internal consultant for the company, where our team operated in somewhat of a pseudo annex of the company, and the different departments would bring their problems to us, and we had our own dev team would come up with solutions to solve those. And anyway, so that's how I got into there, and it was fun. It was fast paced. The market moves would always affect our business, and that was an exciting time for us.
But the company was making, it's a fee-based company?
It's more of an exchange. They would buy and sell the physical gold and silver. I believe they make some of it. They certainly do brand some of their own coins with the APMEX branded stuff. It was a good time.
I was determined to learn a little more about the gold standard in the last couple of years. Not really having a firm grasp on exactly how that worked in the early part of the last century. Fascinating book, The Lords of Finance.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you read that, but a really, really a great book.
Have you ever read Sapiens?
I have not. I've heard of it, but I need to get that on my...
If you like kind of the idea of the coming of gold and how it came into play, Sapiens by, I'm going to pronounce the name wrong, but Yuval, I've got it here, I can loan it to you if you want. That's really interesting because it kind of talked about how you would have cow farmers, wheat farmers, fishermen, and let's say, basket weavers. And if the farmer needed a basket, but the basket weaver didn't need any wheat or cows, well, gold is kind of what they ended up using in order to do that. But you probably already know that.
Yeah. It really is interesting. And then to see how but also it's interesting to read about war from the economic perspective versus the battle perspective. Now, I know a lot of people are fascinated with the actual military equipment and the movements and the battles. I enjoy that to a certain extent. It's a little tougher for me to digest, the human cost. When you learn about war through the economic perspective, from Germany, France, England, and the U.S., and then how that all impacted, was impacted by the gold standard and how they had to get off the gold standard to go into war and print money. And but really, really interesting. You did that. Who was that? APMEX?
APMEX, yeah.
APMEX. And how long were you there?
I think just under 2 years.
It was a big business. Big company.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they were doing billions of dollars in revenue. Yeah, it was. They employed a lot of great people in Oklahoma City, and they actually were in the old Federal Reserve building in Oklahoma City. So the basement of that was a giant vault where they kept all of the inventory. And every now and then, during busy season, a lot of the back office employees would go down there, and we'd get to work and shipping and supply chain side of it. And it was fun to handle the coins and the gold bars. And I think the first kind of light bulb moment for me was just how heavy metal is.
Yeah. Another interesting story from one of those books I was reading was very similar to that. And it was how the accounts from different countries of their gold was handled. There would be a reserve somewhere that held all these gold coins, and they would, much like what you described in the basement of this building, there would be stockpiles of gold, and this would be England's gold on this side of the room, and that would be Germany's gold over there, and France's over there, and there would be. Then this is in the early 1900s. As the amounts changed between countries from their trade, they would literally move bars from one side of the room to the other.
What book did you learn this in?
This was called The Lords of Finance.
Lords of Finance.
Yeah, brilliant book.
We'll have to get that.
And I followed it by a book about John Maynard Keynes, who was instrumental in that first book, and a lot of complimentary stories there. But I love that book. Hannis T. Bourgeious provides accounting services, litigation support, as well as tax and assurance services to companies and individuals throughout the region. With offices in Baton Rouge, Denham Springs, New Orleans, and Hammond, their team of professionals have a wide range of specialized expertise and give personalized attention to each client they work with. HTB serves all types of business structures, including corporations, private businesses, startups, individuals, and more. So call them today to learn how they can help you. Reach out to them by phone or learn more at their website, www.htbcpa.com. A little testimonial here. HTB has been my accounting firm for over 30 years and have guided my initial company from startup to expanding to numerous operating companies. HTB has provided guidance in helping us expand across the U.S., doing business in more than 30 states. Flat out, HTB has made all the difference in the world to our business. This podcast is sponsored by NAI Latter and Blum, Louisiana's leading commercial real estate firm, offering expertise in every discipline, including office, industrial, retail, multifamily, and corporate services. Their agents guide you through the real estate process from start to finish, using a host of marketing, prospecting, and analytical technologies. As leading entrepreneurs, your valuable time and resources should align with the most trusted name in commercial real estate, NAI Latter and Blum. Learn how they can work for you at www.latterblum.com. So we talk, Alex, about the jump frequently on our podcast, and it's when a budding entrepreneur has a job, they've got a mortgage, they've got a car note or two and a child or two, and that was certainly my case. And they're trying to get a side gig going, but it can't generate enough revenue to get it going. And so just got to make a jump. So I think the jump is, for you, enters a story at this point where you've got this gig with APMEX, and tell us about the jump.
Yeah. So before getting into the jump, I just wanted to let you know that you've officially been welcomed to Tulsa. That's the Wednesday 12 o'clock siren.
Oh, okay.
So welcome to Tornado Alley. And
we have an office in Frisco, Texas.
Okay.
And our headquarters is out of Baton Rouge, but Frisco does that. It's every Wednesday at a certain time. Yeah. Or once a month or something like that.
We do it weekly.
Weekly.
We're got to always be ready here.
Yeah, yeah.
But luckily we've got a basement, and there's no tornado threats for today, so you guys are safe here.
So you have a basement here too?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
That's where we hide the bodies.
So a 3-story or whatever you call it, 2.5, and with
converted attic, plus the basement.
Awesome. So awesome. All right, so tell us about your jump.
The jump, yeah. So was really enjoying the role at APMEX, just helping other departments solve problems. And so took it upon myself to, outside of work, try to help some other people solve some of their problems. Started working with this company I launched my own consulting firm called True North Ventures. It's a boutique consulting firm. We help early stage entrepreneurs, I'd say like pre-seed, bootstrapped, those types, grow their business, go to market, find venture capital funding.
By yourself?
Yeah, it's me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
And
so, quick question here: the name. What's the significance of that? True North.
Yeah, as I mentioned beforehand, I grew up scouting, and True North Ventures is kind of a nod to orientation or orienteering. And when you have a compass, it points towards magnetic north. Right. And there's true north, which is a few degrees off depending on where you are in the world. True North Ventures is a metaphor for helping entrepreneurs that have an idea of where they want to go, make those adjustments so that they can get there. It's just kind of, I love the outdoors, so
well, that's cool.
Why we went with it.
I like meaning behind branding.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, people want to come up with a brand just because it looks cool, but there's nothing really behind it. It just looks cool.
Yeah.
I like meaning behind our branding. So
we all do.
Yeah.
So I launched that, True North Ventures, and started doing some consulting with my first client, which was GeoSafe. And
how did you land them? How did you find them?
Honestly,
why would they hire you?
You should be asking them that. And I was kind of maybe a little bit wondering the same when they did, but I didn't have a whole lot of experience in what I was doing, but it was a friend of a friend, and really honestly, that's how all of my business has been to date, has been through referrals.
Right.
And it started out, it was the founder. He was a technical founder, so he had grown the business to where it was, and wanted to take a step back from the customer-facing side of the business and let someone come over and take over the sales and business development of it. It sounded like a fun gig. I was, working some nights for him when I get home from APMEX and start putting together some campaigns, started, getting some meetings going with potential prospects and eventual clients. And around July, I think of 2015, was it? Fact check me on this, but decided, okay, I can't just be doing this in the evenings anymore. I just got to commit to it. We had a little bit saved up, and I think by that time my wife started her residency program, so we had a little bit of a safety net, and just decided to take the jump. Switched jobs, got married, moved, did all of those oh shit moments at once. Just kind of went both feet into it. It was a little slow to start. Now, since then, we've over 10x'd our business and are looking to break into some new states in the next year, release a new product this year, and hopefully some new products in the future years.
GeoSafe, tell us again what they do.
Yeah, so GeoSafe helps first responders reduce their response times. We use interoperability technology that integrates with GPS, 911 call systems, and other types of systems so that you can see where you are, where you're going, what you're responding to.
A lot of code, right?
Lots, yeah.
And so how big is that company in employee count?
Yeah, you can count us on one hand.
Really?
And we're looking to hire some people here in the future so that, again, that we can focus on continuing to deliver value to our customers and let our founder focus on developing things and growing the technical side of the business, and allow me to focus, still more on the customer side and break us into some new states.
So you started with them as a consultant.
Yeah.
And at some point you transitioned.
Yeah. At a certain point, after leading them through a growth phase, we had enough and started jumping on full time. It was great. Absolutely love the founder, Moshe Gutman. Shout out. He's just been an incredible person to work with. It's been a wonderful company to work with. Love what we do. Just at a certain point, it just made sense to come on full time. I think from an accounting perspective, thankfully he allowed me to keep the doors open at True North and continue to do some consulting here on the side.
So I think of guys like that. I know a company out of Baton Rouge that is developing something that sounds similar in some way. I'm not sure if it's more about camera and that kind of technology and monitoring, things like that. But I think the guys that can attack problems like that are really brilliant because it's clearly exceptionally complex.
I think part of the reason why we've done so well is we do something that a lot of companies don't want to do. It's not easy. We're integrating with 30 different types of CADs or databases where the 911 calls go into. We've really carved our niche out by being the company that can integrate with all of these different CAD systems, with the same types of systems that run license plates and driver's licenses, with mapping systems, we've just really made ourselves an interoperability solution. So if you've got a university police department, city fire, and a county sheriff, those are typically on 3 separate systems. But if there's ever an incident on campus, those other agencies don't really know what's going on there. So what we do is we bridge those different agencies together so that they can have better mutual aid.
Okay, I want to talk about a lot of these other organizations that you're involved in. And the list is long. Like I mentioned, it shows a clear passion for entrepreneurship, because they all, at the root of all of these, are essentially entrepreneurism. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
In this order that I just kind of picked, I think I was looking at ones that are more current, that are going on now, which is still a lot. Is it ACT Tulsa or ACT Tulsa?
Yeah, ACT Tulsa. It's an accelerator for Black and Brown founders, and it launched here about a year or so ago, and it's just been incredible. I think one of the biggest things I've noticed about that, having seen a lot of pitch competitions and demo days, what I loved about theirs is, and this is kind of their motto, but it's act different. And they're all about adding value to the entrepreneurs. It's not a show. It's not, pomp and fluff. But when we went to their demo day and they talked about all the things that their entrepreneurs in that cohort accomplished during that time, the accelerator, it was incredible. It's meaningful goals that they achieved, not a lot of vanity metrics. Just the presentation of it felt like you were going into like a slam poetry reading, and you have an MC, and you've got these people pitching their ideas, low lighting, everyone kind of circles around the stage, and it was incredible.
And so on demo day, they're making awards.
Yeah,
financial awards, or
I don't remember any financial awards, but they celebrate a lot of the milestones that they accomplished during the accelerator, whether that's raising venture capital, growing their customer base, releasing a new product.
Are you familiar with this accelerator in New Orleans, Louisiana, called Idea Village?
I think I've heard of it, but tell me more.
Yeah, so they've really grown over the years, and we've had a number of guests on our podcast that have been through that accelerator program. It's really clear the advantages they get from going through that program. It's like what you just discussed. They get real life help on how to overcome challenges that entrepreneurs all go through and to grow their business. They have a donor base, and they make awards, financial award. It's a competition, and whoever wins may get, maybe $50,000.
Oh, that's great.
It's something very significant. What I find really interesting is there's been a number of success stories of those entities. What they've done, I think, here, maybe in the last few years, is they still give those same awards, but they turn that into equity. So when a company does run and there's an exit, that Idea Village, it can take part in that as well. They've had some incredible success stories.
That's great.
Which can then put them in a position to help more and more entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, really cool.
You did mention like the funding in Act Tulsa. Well, they don't do those awards, I believe, but they do for companies that make it into the cohort. They do a non-dilutive stipend or injection of funding. So I think it's
that sounds
considerable amount. It helps them pick up from whatever they've been doing before and spend some time here in Tulsa.
So you act as an advisor with Act Tulsa. You're a board member at Oklahoma Venture Forum.
Yeah.
Tell us what that is.
It's one of the oldest entrepreneurial organizations in the state, where on a monthly basis they bring in a pitch presenter, they bring in a keynote. There's a lot of investors that come to this, a lot of entrepreneurs that come to it. It's a great way to kind of mix and mingle with investors and people looking for investments.
You're invited on that board?
Yeah. I think they asked me to join within the last year or so. Yeah. I think it's one of those cases where I probably started talking too much and probably offered ideas and said, hey, well, why don't you come out here and
Sounds
help
like
us?
We got a worker now.
Yeah.
You're an advisor with 36 Degrees North. Tell us what that is.
36 Degrees North is great. It's a co-working space here in Tulsa, but really it's grown into a lot more than that. They host events there. They've launched an incubator, an accelerator. They have their hands in the Act Tulsa group as well. I think, tracing it back to when there seemed to be a bit of a resurgence in the entrepreneurial sector of Tulsa, 36 Degrees North was one of those kind of core epicenters of that resurgence. And it's been fun with that. It's been fun to advise a bunch of different entrepreneurs here and there that are members of 36 Degrees North co-working space, and they might need a little bit of help triaging a problem that they've been working on, and I'm available to them.
The way it reads is they talk about the emphasis on practical experience from the advisors versus business theory. People have been there, worked through some problems, so that seems to be very valuable. There's some connectivity with all these. You mentioned 36 Degrees North and Act Tulsa, which is interesting. You're a mentor with the Founder Institute.
That launched a while back. I think, it might be actually on pause right now in Tulsa. I just really enjoy getting my hands into all of these different associations and helping people solve problems.
Now, one that you're intimately involved in is startup Grind Tulsa, right? You're
Yes.
the director with that group.
Yeah.
Now, that's an international group.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Startup Grind is a place where entrepreneurs and people interested in entrepreneurship, they come to connect, get inspired, and get educated. We do that through monthly podcasts or fireside chats, much like this, where we'll bring in a thought leader or an executive or a founder, and they'll share their lessons learned building an incredible business. So I think there are 125 different countries.
Yeah.
I want to say 600 chapters or more. Right. I initially started in Oklahoma City with a couple friends that I respect very much, Elliot Adams and Chris Dillon. They had this idea of launching it there, and I think I was brought in initially to help out with just the logistics of finding a place for it, and ended up, being able to lead it there after Elliot went on to the Bay Area. When I knew that my wife and I were moving to Tulsa, I said, we've got to launch a chapter here. There's so much exciting things going on in Tulsa. So September of 2019, we launched Startup Grind Tulsa here, and we've taken some side steps here and there with the pandemic and doing in-person events. So, but we're happy to have interviewed some incredible guests over the years and excited about the future.
So I was reading that there's like 2 million entrepreneurs worldwide that engage with Startup Grind.
Yeah.
Through these 600 chapters you mentioned. I read that there's a Startup Grind, a Startup Grind X, and a Startup Grind U, being at the university level.
Right.
Does Startup Grind Tulsa get involved in? Do y'all subscribe to all of those? Or?
We're just one of the original Startup Grind chapters. We are not involved in any U or X's here. I think what it comes down to, U is obviously university. I think X is for smaller cities, and I think Tulsa makes the cut to be one of the larger cities on Startup Grind. I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
Fact check me on that one.
No, I now that I hear you say it, that's what I read as well. How do you manage the time to do that? We talk about work-life balance in a lot of our podcasts because entrepreneurs traditionally don't do that really well, right? They end up being hyper-focused on growing their business. There's this thing that happens where, there's a fear of failure. Like if you don't succeed, how are you going to pay your house note and your car notes and take care of your family? And so you end up, we've heard it a lot, so frequently, the business totally consumed them. And I know that was certainly the case for me as well. I would work till 2 a.m, at least 5 days a week at home. I'd go to work and then I'd come home and eat with my family, put my kids to bed, do all those responsibilities. And then I'd get back up and, work. So it's enough of a challenge when you're trying to do your family and start your business, but you have this other thing, all these other things that you're doing that require some amount of time. How do you balance all that?
It's a combination of a few things. First and foremost, I have to give a shout out to my supportive wife, Valerie, and our family, who is also here in Tulsa. We lean on each other a lot whenever the demands of work ebb and flow. For me personally, there's one book that I think has really helped change the way that I view the management of my own time, and that's Deep Work by Cal Newport. Have you read it?
I have not.
I'll have to give you a copy of it.
Interestingly enough, I'm not I group a bunch of books into the categories of self-help.
Yeah.
Right or wrong. That's what I tend to do. I either read biographies or, stories like that, but I've never really made it through a book that I would call a self-help book. Much to my loss, I'm sure, right? But I tend to read them and go, oh, well, yeah, I do that. I convince myself, I do that.
Yeah. Well, the cliff notes on it to save you the time, basically you kind of boil down what time of the day you're the most productive, and I block that out on my calendar to get deep work, as they call it, done. And that's all of the creative work. That's the stuff that I need to work on without being interrupted. And for me, a lot of times that's the mornings, getting that stuff done, first thing of the day, or eating the frog, as they say. And then having the afternoons for meetings and triaging things, responding to emails. And so between that, using the Calendly app as a way to schedule meetings has really reduced a lot of back and forth with having to find a time to meet with someone. And so that's been a huge time saver. So really just I'm the kind of person where I've got to load up my schedule and my calendar during the day. I'm very protective of it. And I think the more that I have on my plate, it seems like the more I'm in the zone with there. If I don't have a whole lot going on, then, that's why, you'll see me advising some companies and helping mentor some entrepreneurs. But really being protective of my calendar during the day, and then really being protective of my family time in the evenings. And so we've got a son who's almost a couple years old now, and I try to be very present with him and my wife.
That's a challenge.
After 5, and whenever he goes to bed, we'll decompress for a while, and sometimes I'll log in a little bit and get some more stuff done later, but usually try to keep that to low-hanging fruit or the fun stuff.
Yeah, hearing you talk about the scheduling and doing things at a certain time of day, clearly I could have benefited from reading stuff like that. I tend to operate back in the early days just in complete chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just grabbing for so much, trying to do so much, trying to, get the ball rolling. And I think if I were to, consider some of that type of information now, I'd probably be able to receive it a lot more effectively than, when I was.
I mean, that's in a perfect world, right?
Yeah, right.
But obviously, you're an executive. Fires happen. You've got to put them out. That takes my attention away sometimes. So sometimes the days get shot. But
for sure.
In a perfect scenario, that's what I do.
Pivotal is pleased to sponsor the Next Entrepreneur podcast. Pivotal is a commercial building contractor that performs new building construction, building maintenance, tenant improvements, renovations, and additions. Pivotal has been in business for over 25 years. The Pivotal team is simply the best. They have an impeccable safety record, and they crush schedules. A focus on quality and professional communication is at the root of their success. Pivotal also performs programs for clients who build in multiple markets with current projects in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. If you are looking for the perfect addition to your project team, a contractor who can deliver the results you need to succeed, Pivotal is the one. When it's critical, call Pivotal. They can be found online at pivotalperforms.com. I wanted to wrap up a couple other things because you're involved in yet more things entrepreneur-based. And one is you're a mentor on the Oklahoma Entrepreneur Mentorship Program, which sounds interesting because, as I read, it's licensed from MIT's Venture Mentoring Service. So what does that do? What does that group do?
OKEMP for short. It's an incredible program. I think what's been so wonderful about it for me as a mentor is they have someone on staff that helps facilitate scheduling all of the meetings, vetting all of the entrepreneurs that go and apply through the program. It's just been a wonderful experience. And it's also been an exciting way to see a lot of high quality entrepreneurs come through that program as well, and been able to advise some companies that are helping improve the employees at DHS, helping get people out golfing more and hiring caddies to golf. It's kind of like Uber for caddy, and then work with some other like AI financial services companies too through that.
Last one I wanted to mention, you're organizer and board member at Innovate OK.
Yeah.
So that sounded really interesting. It's a competition, right?
Yeah.
Between
so
developers and designers.
Yeah, Innovate OK, doing business as Startup OKC, was a proprietary startup weekend where we would have people come in, pitch on a Friday night. They would assemble teams over the weekend. We would bring in entrepreneurs and coaches and mentors to help walk these teams through the process of building an MVP. Then Sunday evening, we'd bring in a panel of judges, and these entrepreneurs would pitch what they've created over the weekend. And I initially got involved with that as a participant. We prototyped.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we prototyped a VR app that one of our group members used some Unity programming to build this program that you put on a Google, I think they call it Google Glass. It looks like a cardboard box, and not glasses, but a cardboard box. And you put it on and you look around the room, and it would simulate what it was like to be in a boardroom if you were to be pitching, your idea.
Oh,
and
come on.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So it would give you, pointers on maintaining eye contact, not just with one person, but it would, have you go around the room and contact with others. And it had an tracker so that you could try to watch ums.
No way.
Yeah, anyway, so we put that together over the weekend, and we didn't win. We placed second. It was, I think, in the fall, and then we took a little bit of break from that. The team had full intentions of actually launching a company out of that, and we started meeting to put together, the agreements and all that, who would do what, and it ended up fizzling out, and we failed. But the lesson that we learned with that was, sometimes I think there's three things that really make or break companies: the timing, the tenacity, like the hustle,
Right.
the talent. I guess they happen to be T's as well. But anyway, so yeah, the team that performed in that weekend may have not been the best team to move it forward. The team they were all great people too. Sure. It's just we all had different things going on, and we only committed to one weekend, and then things start to grow from there. But and obviously the timing, which when we launched this, we did some competitive research, and it was really exciting to see that a lot of the other VR companies out there weren't doing anything like this. And then between the time of the competition and then when the whole team regrouped, one of the competitors it's almost like they watched our pitch video and started implementing some of our ideas. So that was exciting to see them actually roll that out, because we failed to bring that to market. But at the same time, seeing something that we worked on that weekend actually be able to be used by customers was exciting. And obviously, market timing, like we might have been a little bit early, might have been a little bit late. If you hit that Goldilocks spot, that
it's interesting. We were talking about this yesterday with a guest, that whenever you bring an idea that you're working on to family or friends, frequently there's a lot of negativity. Oh, you don't want to do that. You can't. That's not going to work, right? And
or there's the ego boosters that will just tell you whatever you want to hear.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't want to tell you your baby's ugly.
Right. Some of those negative comments prove to be fuel to our guests to move them forward. Like, there was no way they were going to fail, because they weren't going to allow that guy the naysayer, to be right. When you look at these entrepreneurial groups where you're bringing experienced entrepreneurs together and as mentors or advisors to these budding entrepreneurs, that's different than your uncle who is a naysayer and doesn't have any experience in that. So there's real value. There can be real value in those groups, obviously. And I've seen that through a number of our guests, and it can be transformational to their business. So it also struck me that not only is that interesting to you and exciting, and I know that you're passionate about it, but I suspect that there's a potential for some business opportunities for you down the road as these companies do catch on and maybe start to grow and become something. Of all those groups that we just named, which was a bunch, what is it that's at the root of that? What do you enjoy about that process?
That's a good question. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy solving problems. I think with a lot of the mentoring services, it's nice because you can solve that problem and give them points on how to do that, but then you can move on to the next problem and you're not shouldering fixing it yourself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Thinking a little bit more about that now, I think so many people wait until later in life to start giving back or start mentoring or doing these things. And for me, it's I hope that there's a lot more that I can contribute in the years to come. I can at least contribute a little bit here and there with some of the companies that I'm involved with. And it's a fun way to, start that process earlier.
Yeah. That's good. But you're also involved, besides those industry type organizations, true charitable projects, the All Kidz Project. I know that's near and dear to your heart. You're on the fundraising and development chair, right?
Yes.
Tell us what All Kidz does.
That is a fun one. We help provide enrichment activities to foster youth of Oklahoma. So if kid wants to have a birthday party, we'll help them out with that. And it's just kind of like, I think what really tugs at me with that one is I grew up in a family, and my mom was always doing like, the Martha Stewart birthdays where she'd, decorate something like put your face through and it makes you look like a clown, or we dress up. And, so I always got to experience these fun, exciting things. Super mom. Never really had any issues. Like if I wanted to do any extracurricular activities like rowing or scouts, my parents didn't say no to that kind of stuff. And so it just kind of, it hurts to imagine kids that are really passionate about wanting to do something, whether that's, play soccer or gymnastics, or, even just have something as simple as a birthday party, and not be able to do something like that, because those are some really fond memories that I look back on, and being able to return some of those feelings that I had to foster youth that may not get to experience that for me is, oof, could do that in a day. Yeah. It feels good.
You grew up in a great household. You had both parents. Your father had a great job. It's a sweet life, right? Many of us grew up in that way, and there are many others that didn't. And to be able to help, in the way that you do with that is that's good stuff.
Yeah.
The world needs more of that for sure.
Certainly thankful for having those privileges, and for the honor or privilege to be able to give those things back.
So as we start to wrap up, Alex, a couple of questions here. You've interviewed, you mentioned a number of entrepreneurs, and I've told you how I've picked up and learned some things from the entrepreneurs that I've interviewed. Are there anything that you've picked up in your conversations where you're either taking back to your entrepreneur groups or your other entrepreneur groups, or putting into play in your own business?
Yeah, one of those things that it's a work in progress right now, so I'll have to let you know down the line, how it pans out. But one of those things that I feel seems to touch a lot of the guests that I've been interviewing in the past, whether or not they know it. But to me, what it seems like to be one of the greatest common denominators is those that spend the time to journal and reflect on their thoughts and write down what went well, what didn't go well. Those are the ones that I seem to see, like, these people really get it. And so I've tried to implement that into my rituals, journaling down things that I've learned, thoughts. I'm not a huge social media guy. I like to keep a lot of my thoughts to myself. Putting those in some place where I can reference them later has been something that I've been testing out lately.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I've got to think, specifically, I have to thank Kevin Moore from Spur Capital Partners for really encouraging me to do that.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's next for Alex?
Well, I think the most exciting thing that we're working on right now with GeoSafe is we're going to be launching a new product. So we're hoping to hopefully add some value to existing customers that are looking for another product that they can use for electronic citations that will help them, keep their eyes on what's going on and spend less time doing administrative stuff. It'll improve the safety with them, as well as some other things as well. So that's probably the biggest news with GeoSafe right now. As far as the other ventures, always looking forward to getting plugged in with entrepreneurs and companies that need help putting together a sales playbook, or kind of taking that step, trying to figure out how to get towards a funding stage, or to try to find whether that's capital or whether that's taking a bootstrapped approach to put together a scrappy plan on how they're going to turn their idea into something that produces revenue for them. So that's always open.
Last question. What advice would you give to a budding entrepreneur just starting out?
What advice would I give to a budding entrepreneur just starting out?
You see a ton of them, and I guess you give that advice now as in your role as an advisor and mentor. But for our listeners here, that's a big open-ended question, right?
That's a good one. I think kind of the initial one that stems out to me is, at least what I see in terms of the entrepreneurs that come through these mentoring programs I'm involved with, those that I think do the most or achieve the most are ones that are receptive of feedback, those that can check the ego at the door and truly listen and deconstruct the advice that's been given to them. And I don't just mean that as a mentor saying, this is the best way for you to listen to what I'm saying. I think that it's those entrepreneurs that have a self-awareness about them, those that can take a step back from themselves and evaluate the situation of, what are these people telling me? What is the market telling me? What are my customers saying? Kind of going back to the reflecting phase of, being able to kind of process that information, I think is what really helps, I think, emerging entrepreneurs really kind of nail it down and make meaningful steps.
I can see that. I mean, if you're wise enough to step back and listen, then you clearly want to excel, right? Look, I appreciate that. I enjoyed our conversation. I appreciate you having us in your home. I wish you continued success in all you do. I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Andrew. It's a pleasure to have you all here.
Yep. Thank you, sir. We so enjoyed Tulsa. I do not know what we were thinking or expecting, but it was such a cool place. We were pleasantly surprised. Day after day, we just fell in love with the place. We really appreciate Alex inviting us into his home. We had a wonderful conversation there. Alex is an entrepreneurial enthusiast. He really loves entrepreneurism. He is a mentor, and he gives back to the Tulsa community in a big way in that respect. We appreciate the time that he shared with us. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you next time. We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. They can be found online at b1bank.com. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. You can find more information at propelyourstory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur podcast and hit the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on social media. The links are in the description below.